our project on St. Mary's Food Bank because we couldn't physically volunteer at the organization. We just made a presentation about it. My name's Marissa.
I'm Andrew.
I'm Hannah.
I'm Samantha.
And I'm Kayla.
So, St. Mary's mission statement is St. Mary's Food Bank serves to alleviate hunger through the gathering and distribution of food while encouraging self sufficiency, collaboration, advocacy, and education. So, St. Mary's was started by John Van Hangel in 1967 in Phoenix, Arizona. His local church, St. Mary's Basilica, gave him $3,000 and an empty building to start the food bank, and this was the first ever food bank. And so to thank St. Mary's Basilica, he named the food bank after them, called it St. Mary's Food Bank. So John Van Hangel was known as the father of food banking because he founded the first food bank and a bunch of other food banks. Before he created St. Mary's Food Bank, he volunteered at a soup kitchen where he was influenced by a mother in need to found the first food bank. Her story basically was she relied on the soup kitchen for most of her meals, and otherwise she had to dig through like grocery store dumpsters, and he thought that wasn't right, so he decided to make a place where people could donate their food and people in need could pick up their food. So last year I went to serve at St. Mary's Food Bank. I went with the GCU Rotaract Club. In the corner, that's me. Basically what we did there was a conveyor belt and we filled care packages with food for people in need. Things like oranges and potatoes went into the box. I was in charge of sweeping up the garbage and making sure nothing rotten went into the boxes.
So St. Mary's Food Bank mainly aims to help people who are struggling with hunger in small communities across Arizona. They seek to provide assistance to those living in remote areas of the state that have little access to food and high rates of poverty. Another major target population is the many Native American tribes that reside in Arizona. The organization seeks to provide food and resources to tribal communities that struggle with poverty and food insecurity. So the issue of hunger is very prevalent in Arizona. For example, 2 million residents face food insecurity every year, and nearly 30% of our neighbors are considered working poor, which means they live on wages that barely cover their housing and basic necessities. Unfortunately, 1 in 4 children living in Arizona grow up in poverty with food insecurity. So St. Mary's Food Bank distributes food to hundreds of nonprofit partners throughout the state, including food pantries, dining halls, homeless shelters, and more. The specific programs that help children are the Kids Cafe, School Pantry, and Backpack programs. And another strong feature of the organization is the Community Kitchen, which is a hands-on training program that teaches struggling adults to be more self-sufficient by teaching them skills to be successful in the food industry. And lastly, for areas of improvement, we didn't see a lot that needs to be fixed because they are helping a lot of people, but we said they could expand to reach other states besides Arizona. They could also partner with restaurants and grocery stores to maybe take their leftover foods instead of solely relying on donations. And they could find more sustainable solutions by planting crops and helping people be more self-sufficient that way.
So St. Mary's Food Bank has a lot of different success stories, but I'm going to talk about Trina and Elijah. So this is Trina. She was in jail for 4 years, and when she got out, it was really hard to find a place that would hire her because of her jail time. But luckily, St. Mary's Food Bank took her in and helped her find her passion, which was cooking, and got her into some culinary classes. And now she plans to take management and hospitality courses as well so that she can support not only herself, but her 13-year-old daughter. And then this is Elijah. And Elijah previously worked as a medical coder, but he actually has a condition that causes his eyesight to progressively deteriorate and caused him to go blind. And because of that, he was actually let go from his job, which left him and his family barely able to pay the bills, let alone afford groceries. But St. Mary's Food Bank helped them with this, and now they're on their way to paying all of their bills and they're able to feed their family. So there's a lot of different volunteer opportunities, but probably the most common is what Hannah had the opportunity to do, which is work in the warehouse and basically just package up all of the care packages and assist the people coming in and out of the food bank. But there are also ways to get involved, like donating through the website.
All right, so here we look at the effectiveness of the organization. And so last year alone, 2 years ago, I should say, they donated just over 97 million pounds of food, which came out to just over 265,000 pounds of food a day. As mentioned earlier, they have their Kids Cafe, which provides 6,000 meals daily, 1,000 which are hot meals. And then they also have their community kitchen, which is their 9-week culinary training program. So it provides opportunities for families that don't have jobs or can't afford food on their own. It gives them that option to do so. And the food that they make, they then serve into the community. And then there's not much to change here, but one thing that they can implement would be the same thing for the adults, the culinary program, but it's for children after school. And so it could be a once a week type of deal, and it's only for 2 hours long. And students could go in and they learn how to cook food and make different dishes that they can then bring home for their families.
So I was doing research on how COVID has affected St. Mary's Food Bank, and I came across an article about how they handled the pandemic, and it was overall positive review. It had mentioned the decrease in volunteers at the beginning of 2020, but began to increase again once the holidays came around, and now they are almost back to their regular numbers of volunteers. Even when the pandemic was in full force and the state shut down, the National Guard, who is partnered with St. Mary's, was still volunteering and delivering foods to families and children. Until the state was able to open again, the number of volunteers was significantly lower, but luckily they've been able to adapt to the state regulations regarding gatherings and create a plan for volunteers to serve the community. And then some of the effects of COVID-19, basically St. Mary's has just abided by the laws and regulations that have been implemented. So they're limiting their gatherings to 50 volunteers per event. They're making sure they're socially distanced, that they're constantly sanitizing the areas, making sure everything is clean. They're wearing face masks and gloves. There is no physical contact allowed. And then when they do arrive, there are temperature checks that are mandatory. And then they did add a new section that basically states what is prohibited in terms of volunteers. So if you've traveled to a hotspot where there's high rates of COVID, or you're in close contact with somebody who has tested positive, or even if you're having any symptoms that may reflect COVID-19 and you're not sure, they just suggest that you stay home.
So here's some of our resources that we used for this presentation. Thank you so much for listening.